Mr. Posner, from the news media establishment who have embraced you as if you came down from the mountain like
we got that point. Let Mr. Posner talk.
Talk about
only thing, I'm not exaggerating when I say almost the only thing that Oliver Stone gets correct in that film is the date that Kennedy is killed, and you know that in your heart. But let's do something very important. I believe there's a major issue here. There's a major issue here. If I am correct that Connolly's lapel was flying up at frame 224, then this issue is over and the single bullet is proven, as I show in the book. Now, wait a minute. On the last crossfire, please, I asked you on the air, national television, if you had ever heard of this lapel movement beforehand. I heard a rumor that Dr. Wecht, you knew about it as early as 1975. This is a transcript from the last crossfire, and I'm quoting your answer. You say, no, no, no. I never wrote any such letter. I just heard about the lapel business last year. However, it has come to my attention. I have an April 1975. This is from Robert B. Olson, who's an attorney for the Rockefeller Commission. And on page 2 of a summary of a telephone conversation with you, Dr. Wecht, he says he, referring to Dr. Wecht, also stated that there is now strong evidence that Governor Connolly was shot at frame 224 of the Zapruder film. This evidence consists of comparing frame 223 with frame 224, the latter showing a dramatic, your quotes, change in which Governor Connolly's suit coat is pushed out toward the front, indicating the bullet just exited from his chest. You know what happened, Dr. Wecht? You knew this in 1975, and you suppressed this key evidence because you knew that this was the evidence that proved the single bullet. Went through the 2 minutes, 160-grain, fully jacketed copper bullet, and this is a long bullet for its size. It's like a flying drill when it gets going. But what the Warren Commission did not understand, what the House Select Committee did not understand, is what we see here on this chart, which is based upon the work from failure analysis out in California.
It's faster here.
That's right. It comes in at full speed. It's fired at 2,000 feet a second. It hits Kennedy, and as it goes through, it starts to slow up. It causes a cavity here that injures him on the spine, causing his arms to go up. Starts to tumble as it leaves, hits the governor at about 1,500 feet a second, hits the ribs sideways, which flattens the bullet slightly and leaves some fragments in. And this is the key. When it comes down here and hits his wrist, which is a large bone, it has enough speed to break the bone, but not enough to deform the bullet.
But that's the first time it hits anything really hard.
That's right. And that experiment now has been recreated to show that a bullet can do that.
You'd still love to be able to tidy up just a little more if you had universal knowledge.
There's nothing in here that's unanswered, but what I would love to know is even more and more about Lee Harvey Oswald.
That's so frustrating. Yeah,
that's the key to this whole case, as far as I'm concerned. You can talk about the technology and the bullet and the single bullet and whether it was possible or not, and that's interesting. It's a chapter in the book, and it gets a lot of attention because it seems to be the thing that people think about, the so-called magic bullet. But for me, as you can tell by this book, the answer is found in Oswald's life. Half the book, 300 pages, is about him. Only by studying him and seeing this psychopathic deterioration almost into madness can you really determine why Jack Kennedy died in Dallas in November of '64. Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, what surprises me at the end result here is that this is not a rehash. It's not the same old information we've had for 30 years. It's not the Warren Commission just repackaged in a new volume. I went back to original witnesses. People hadn't talked to them sometimes in 20 and 25 years. Doctors who treated Kennedy at Parkland Hospital for the first time in the record in 2 decades. I went back to original documents. Sometimes I got lucky. I got inside the KGB files for the first time ever and include information from those files in here. Oswald's KGB handler, Yuri Nosenko, spoke to me on the record for the first time ever.
He defected to the United States.
Right, still living in the U.S. under an assumed name. I found lost files, as I call them, Charlie, from Jim Garrison, the New Orleans District Attorney's investigation into the case that exposed what a sham he had. And I also was able to utilize new computer enhancements and technology on the so-called home movie of the assassination, the Zapruder film, things we couldn't do 2 or 3 years ago, much less 5 years ago, that can answer the questions of what happened at Dealey Plaza precisely. Breath, but I've been using Maury's trampoline for the last 15 minutes.
That's what it's for. We want our guests happy.
Yeah, just months before he tried to kill a retired Army general. I mean, he was somebody who was, as you said, disturbed from an early time. He chased his brother with a butcher knife at an early time, pulled a knife on his sister-in-law, used to punch his mother in the face.
He had been sent away, actually, to get help when he was a child. They knew he was disturbed, and there's a long history of
here in New York, as a matter of fact, where there are a lot of disturbed children. But Oswald stood out as being surprisingly disturbed, and they wanted to send him to a youth house.
Right.
And those who hunt know that the entry wound tends to be the small wound.
Absolutely.
So if you hit a deer or a person, you're most likely to have a small movement forward when the bullet enters. And then as the bullet exits, it blows back.
That's right. It happens so fast. We can see, and it's terrible because, not to be gruesome, but this pinkish cloud coming out of the president, but to the front. Now, this is key that the president has been hit from the rear. If he's hit from the front, we would expect to see on this film the red cloud should be behind the president as the bullet exits. In addition, you can see right here a line of material. This is also shooting out of the president's head. This is partially skull and brain matter that is going up and to the front. We now have the photographic evidence of a shot from the rear.